Our show is brought to you today by Cave Day. Cave Day leads group focus sessions for global community every day on Zoom, which is perfect for writers. We all know how hard it is to make yourself set some goals, sit down, and hopefully hit that flow state where the characters start talking to you. Cave Day is here to help with that. I tried it, and I got to tell you, it worked great for me. I set out some goals, I went in for an hour-long sprint, and I not only got more work done than I expected to, it was better than I hoped for. Cave Day is like a group fitness class for your work. A trained guide leads check-ins, you do deep work sprints, and you take energizing breaks. Members report that they get 2 to 4 times more done with Cave Day's science-backed method. Join the world's most focused community and work alongside Emmy and Oscar winners. Writers Room listeners can get a 7-day trial and 50% off their first month with promo code WritersRoom at checkout. Head to caveday.org. That's caveday.org. Hey, Sam, you come up with that intro line?
You didn't tell me that was today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Writers Room with Sam and Jim. This is the show where we bring aspiring writers into our writers' room to help them work on and develop their story. And we're going to do that this week with Phillip Cordell, who's already been making little pieces of a story and putting them online for some time. But before we get into that, Sam wants to go off about something. Sam, what you got?
So the guy we're going to talk to today, a guy named Phillip, he did something that is something people hope and dream about. He made short movies, and he put them up on the web, and he's got a certain amount of success. And the thing is, what I like about that, what I want to talk about is people in our industry have so many ideas and opinions about what is the right way to do something, the wrong way to do something in terms of breaking in. Even our agents. When we're talking about ourselves, they have very strong opinions of that won't work, that won't work, that won't work.
There are always 100 reasons why not to do something.
Right. And sometimes I find it more demoralizing to have those conversations about why these things won't work or even why these things will work than to just do the work.
Yeah.
And that's what Phillip did, and we'll talk to him about it, is he did some work. There's definitely a group of things that are wrong to do to break into our industry, which is, for example, don't write 50 episodes of a show. I can tell you right now,
nobody wants to read the first episode, let alone 50 of them.
Right. Although, if you're in a cabin in Wisconsin and you love writing, maybe you write 50 just to find the soul of the show, and that's
right.
your process. So even that one has an exception. And the thing is, this is such a low-odds deal that we have to find we're always finding exceptions, and we have to work knowing that we're going to set out on this path, and it's not going to work out the way we intend. But because we're walking on the road, we're giving it a chance of working.
Can I jump in on your rant for a second here?
Yeah.
So I'm a Chicago Bears fan because I grew up near Chicago, been raised on it. They drafted a real quarterback in the draft this year, Justin Fields, and there's this huge debate in football. When's he going to play? Right? As always for highly drafted rookie quarterbacks, when are they going to play? And it comes down to the argument of, do you want to give them time to learn, or do you want to get them on the field? Because the only way to actually learn how to play in the NFL is to play in games, right? Mm-hmm. To actually do the work. And this is exactly the same thing.
First of all, I love the fact that you're comparing a quarterback to a writer. Right? It's not like we're being compared to the water boy or the cheerleader. Where you are. Okay, quarterback. I'm already sold, whatever your point is.
Yeah, all I'm saying is, like, what Phillip has done is to go out and actually do the work. He's written stuff and recorded it. That's what we do. And you want to get better at what we do? Do it.
Right. And the people that you will meet, you send it to a manager. You manage to get your stuff to a manager, or you manage to get it to your uncle's bookie's nephew who is something. And this and this and this. And they sit there and say, this is what you need to do. Write it down. And then start comparing it to other people say, and at some point you have to chuck it.
Right.
You absolutely should not put your script under the windshield wiper of a movie star that you see in a restaurant so that they find it when you come out. It won't work. Except...
Right, because the valet is going to take and put his name on it and leave it under the windshield.
Well, this is Los Angeles, right? It's not a good plan. It's not going to work. Probably 99.99999. But it's an example of, then there's that story.
Right.
And then you're like, really? That happened?
That story about that valet that made it?
Right. Exactly. And that's their story. So I just want to, no matter what we say, no matter what the manager says, no matter what other people says, it's just a riptide of negativity pulling you out to sea. And the thing is, we have to fight against it. And we have to just keep trying stuff, because at the heart of this path of trying to break in is the fact that there's no path.
Right.
You know, there's the heart of the problem is there's no path. There's no proven way. Even if you follow all the rules and you manage to get to be a PA, and then you work your way up to writer's assistant, and then you are exposed to the showrunners and senior writers that can help you on your path and do all of that, it still might not work. Or you might be that person that happens to apply for a job, and next thing you know, you're a staff writer 6 months later.
Right.
All those things happen. And the only thing they have in common is that somebody showed up.
Right.
So I guess that's what I'm saying. The only thing that is true in every situation is show the fuck up.
Amen. Sam, I want to talk for a minute about our sponsor, Cave Day. Cave Day leads group focus sessions for a global community every day on Zoom. You know how sometimes we struggle to get in the zone when we're writing?
No, I never struggle. I don't know what you're talking about. I do know something about procrastination, though.
We work at our computers, and we're bombarded with distractions all the time.
I'm sitting there struggling with some sort of dialogue or something's just about right, and then I get that phone call. You know what? The phone call might not even be that important, but in that moment, it feels important because I'm procrastinating.
I know, and I've been giving you grief about reaching for your phone for years, but it turns out that somebody has come up with a solution.
They're not taking away my phone, though, are they?
They don't have to. Cave Day works like a group fitness class for your work. A trained guide leads check-ins, deep work sprints, and energizing breaks. Members report that they get 2 to 4 times more done with Cave Day's science-backed method. I tried it, and I have to say, I was impressed. You're with a group of people, and you commit to each other that you're going to turn off all the distractions for the length of the sprint, just an hour at a time.
How actually did it work for you?
It worked great. I think just knowing that you're working alongside other people, even though you're all in your own individual caves, really does help keep you on task. But you have to put your phone out of sight.
And that's what I'm talking about. That's the catch.
Check it out. I think you'll like it. And so will our listeners. Join the world's most focused community and work alongside Emmy and Oscar winners, and me and Sam too.
Writers Room listeners get a 7-day trial, 50% off their first month with promo code Writers Room at checkout. Head to caveday.org. Again, that's caveday.org. It really works, everybody.
Okay, let's get into this week's show.
Hello, Phillip. This is Sam.
Hello, Sam.
Hi, Phillip. It's Jim.
Hey, Jim.
I don't feel like you need to say it's Jim.
Well, you know, we're having an enthusiastic greeting moment here, so I was just leaning into it.
Okay.
I love it. I love enthusiastic greetings.
Yeah, but then when JR is recording it, then we have to do it again, right?
I think he is recording it. I think we're already doing it.
Oh, this is it?
This is it.
I'm always confused. Sometimes I'm like, okay, we're going to go for it. Obviously, I've just ruined it.
Well,
so
what
we're
I
gonna do it
like,
again.
no, we can keep this. What I like about it is that I get to prove how confused you are. It makes me feel better as a writing partner.
I think any partner you have would be confused, just so we're clear.
What is the source of the
I know.
confusion? Is it me? Is it
All right.
you?
Poor Phillip. Poor Phillip.
Yeah, it's all Phillip.
How are you, Phillip?
Just glad to be here, fellas. Glad I dig the high energy, the enthusiasm. It's right up my alley, man.
Faking enthusiasm is an important part of being a Hollywood writer. Let me tell you right now.
I thought you were going to say marriage, but yeah, same thing.
What?
What?
Phillip, even though you're in Nashville and we are in LA, we are tied at the hip of writing / parenting / marriage. Are you still married?
I am. Happily.
Yes, us too. So
Always.
Nice well-faked enthusiasm. Good.
Uh-huh.
now let me jump in and say, if this is indeed the start of our show, that Phillip, you created a website, or really a series of videos that I watched a ton of, and anybody who wants to check it out, it's and we'll repeat it again later, but it's NashvilleDadsClub.com. And so you did a bunch of short videos. They're all on different things, really. They're about being men. They're about being dads. You have and here I am telling you what you have, but that's, I think, what professional interviews do.
Yeah.
I'm telling the audience. What you did, I think, that's really cool is you have a selection of different kinds of dads, not just because of their ethnicity. I mean, you got the Australian white guy, you got the American black guy, and then you got the white American guy, all dads, all approaching it slightly differently, all funny.
All deeply flawed as any dad is in any media presentation.
Yeah.
Of course.
And then you just go. And I love that. So how did you come up with this? And how'd you get to the idea of I'm going to make videos? Because I think a lot of people, including Jim and I, have talked about making shorts, but you actually did it. So let's talk about that process.
Yeah, man. Well, I went to college back in the day for TV and film production. So I always knew that I wanted to make things. And then, like so many of us, I had to get a real job.
Mm-hmm.
It was not opening restaurants ROTS, for me, it was joining my family's AV company. So audio-visual technology in classrooms and boardrooms.
Still relevant.
Yeah, you have the skills and equipment, it sounds like. That's really helpful.
That's it, man. And so while there, I grew up making music and doing all kinds of creative stuff. I found myself in a creative rut, and so I started making videos about my day job and making kind of fun music videos, and it became the most successful music stuff I'd ever done after years of trying to be a serious artist. And I was like, yeah, let's just like rap about technology. And it kind of took off in my little niche industry. And that was pretty cool and a lot of fun. And about 10 years later, I'm like, well, I'm almost too old to do that stuff, but I've had a cool experience of experiencing this kind of viral sensation in a very niche demographic. So I'm going to write a pilot about it. And that's what I did. I wrote my first pilot and we shot it. This was back in 2019 and put it in a few festivals and it did pretty well. Rashad and Dean, two of the dads that are with me in Nashville Dads Club, they were both in my pilot.
Rashad and Dean?
And Dean. Yeah, Dean plays the Australian dad.
Yeah. Let me interrupt just for a second. So when you say pilot, do you mean a 3 or 4 minute short movie?
No, I shot a 30-minute pilot.
Wow.
Good for you.
Yeah, and it looked good. It looked like TV, and that's my goal with this project, because I want it to look like TV. I know there's a lot of viral content out there, but we want ours to look like TV. And, that got the gears turning, and I was a partner at my job and I was on the executive team, as VP of technical operations, which is as super creative as it sounds, right? Crunching numbers and spreadsheets.
Pays the rent, man.
Well, that's the deal, man. I left a very stable career to jump all in on this thing. And so the first project, I was sitting with my buddy Rashad from the show, and we were brainstorming on some ideas, and we were like, let's just, you write what you know. So let's write about being dads in Nashville and what those different experiences look like. And maybe we'll start it as a web series and see if we can, generate some interest that way. And sure enough, we've got about 1.5 million views, spread across all 8 episodes. It's not viral by cats in sinks standards, and adorable viral videos. But yeah, man, for narrative short form, it's doing pretty well. And so it's opened the doors. Usually if I'm pitching this current take on the pilot, we've got 1.5 million views. We know we can sell some merchandise, and we're just looking for the right version of the pilot to tell, the right story to tell.
Yeah, I think you've set everything up about as well as you possibly could doing it yourself from Nashville.
Well, and let's identify what those things are just for a second, right? So number 1 on that list.
He actually did it.
No way, man. No. You went right past it. He decided he's going to jump all in, and somewhere he has a spouse that said, yeah, you go ahead and do that. You leave that stable job and go pursue this insane low odds idea, even though we have, how many children do you have?
Got 2 kids.
Yeah, got 2 kids. I mean, it's easy to do when you're 22 and you're out of school and you're living in an $800 apartment somewhere or on your parents' couch. And it gets harder and harder the more you stack things up, like responsibility to spouse, responsibility to kids. So I think your wife, you need to worship the ground she walks on, man, if you don't already.
Is that going to be on the recording?
God damn right.
Put me in a tough spot there, guys.
What he's saying is he does already. Yes.
Of course, I do. And I am very fortunate. She's fantastic.
And, Jim and I had to talk Jim's wife and my fiance at that time, into, we have these 2 restaurants doing really well, and we could expand this out many different ways. We had scoped how to do it.
We were days away from signing the lease on that 3rd restaurant, as I recall.
Things like that. And then we said, no, we don't want to do that. Let's go live a life of poverty 2,000 miles away. And so so we're with you. That's maybe why I zoned in on that. Now, I want to get into another thing, though, and it's a creative choice. You want it to look like TV. Why? What's your thinking there?
My thinking is that that's the goal, and my thinking is evolving, of course. But I come home and turn on Seinfeld or The Office or Simpsons, some of my beloved shows, and my wife, maybe hops on Instagram or hops on TikTok or somewhere, and I've got this chip on my shoulder about making high quality, professional looking content.
Yeah.
Long term, it can be shown wherever. But I just want that to be kind of the hallmark, the brand of what we're trying to build here, is that these guys know how to make the real deal,
Right. To get in the real club, you want to prove that you can make the stuff that they make in the real club. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, let me throw in a counterpoint to that. There's another way to look at it. First of all, if you're writing the stuff, and let's say you're the showrunner, right, you are going to pick the look of it, all of that good stuff. So you can design whatever you want. the stuff ends up looking a certain way on television, not necessarily because it comes in that way. People come in and they pitch really unique perspectives on shows and their lives, and then after it works its way through the gastrointestinal tract of television, it comes out looking the way it looks, which is less true, by the way, than it ever has been, because shows have such a there's so many shows now.
But there's still a tendency, certainly at the networks, they sort of have signature look. They're drawn to signature kinds of things that you'll see a lot of on one given place.
Right. And so that idea of making it look like TV, it's an elusive thing, because you can make it look like a CBS show, but you can't make it, if it's a CBS show, it's not going to look like an HBO show, right? And so I wonder if that's the way to go or not.
I want to bring up one example here of someone who did exactly what Philip's doing, which is Letterkenny, right? Do you know Letterkenny, Philip, on Hulu?
I do.
Right? Like, they did a couple shorts, right? And he sort of developed this thing, but it looks like TV, I guess. It's mostly exterior, which is in itself unusual, I think, for sitcom land. But what makes it so distinctive is there's a very distinct style in the cutting and in the sort of patter of the show. It's very patter heavy. A lot of people saying lots of stuff and then quick cuts back and forth between people saying stuff, which gives it its own signature feel. It feels very much like TV, yet it has a voice or an approach to doing that is distinctive and all its own, which is the other way to go. Because I think part of looking like TV is also your video equipment, how you're processing it, all of that stuff.
Let's step right now into the writing part of it. So tell me about these characters. So you've got, I would just call the characters by their actual names, Phillip, Rashad, and Dean. Well, tell me about those guys.
Yeah, and what's the pilot story that you're looking to do here?
Yeah, great question. And that's one of the reasons I was so stoked about coming on the show is I've been told by working writers in LA that, you've got a good story world, you've got good characters. You just got to, what is the story you want to tell? And I'll pitch you guys on my current take on it, and I would love your input, on whether or not this is the story that's going to make it jump off the page.
Right on.
When we're shooting for TV, we'll tweak the characters a little bit more. You'll get some backstory, obviously, that you don't get in our 3-minute shorts. And so Phil, is the product of being an East Nashvilleian, which, if you guys don't know, it's the kind of hipster central here in Nashville, raised on the hot bar at Whole Foods, high strung. And, again, when we get into this backstory, we've kind of painted the picture that his wife died mysteriously on a ayahuasca vision quest in the jungle. Very mysterious circumstances. And of course, the beauty of something like that is you can always bring those people back later if you want. And so, he's got a 1-year-old baby that he's got to raise on his own. And so his anxiety is through the roof. Again, very high strung. And I'd say his primary motivation is probably to find like a woke hottie to help him raise his 1-year-old. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for somebody to step in, help him settle down and carry this weight with him. So that's the Phil character.
Woke hottie.
I love that.
Woke hottie.
A woke hottie.
What a great little phrase. Okay.
Rashad is from North Nashville and grew up with, friends with Phil, but they kind of lost touch over the years. He's a cool dad, calm under pressure, so long as it doesn't involve bodily fluids. We've got a couple.
I saw the one with the teeth, yeah.
So exactly, man. That's what I was thinking of. He works as an IT consultant from home, and he's got 13-year-old twins. And having already gone through the baby phase, he knows a little bit more than the other dads and is kind of the guru for all things baby. His wife recently left him for a famous celebrity. We won't say who that is just yet, but when this thing takes off, guys, we've got so many stars piling into Nashville. We'll have pick of the litter.
Somebody, and wasn't the Australian guy in Nashville? Isn't that what I saw on your website? One of my favorite shows.
Oh, yeah.
Those shows that I accidentally got addicted to and then would have viewing parties. Yeah, anyway.
That was a funny one. That same thing, right? I'm like, I'm just watching it to see, the surroundings, the environments, because I recognize them. And, and then 3 weeks later, it's like, Deacon, how could you do that to her? Raina is a gem.
Well, I love the pilot, and then I watched the show, and I was like, oh, this is getting soapy and like this, and I don't know if this is for me. Okay, never mind. And then
I'll just give it 40 more episodes.
Right, then 40 more episodes. I'm sitting with one of the writer's assistant on the couch crying because watching the season finale, and I was like, how did I get here?
That's funny.
But okay, so Rashad, what is North Nashville?
So North Nashville is a predominantly black portion of Nashville. Nashville is called the Athens of the South because of the huge number of learning institutions. So in North Nashville, you've got Fisk, you've got Tennessee State, you've got Meharry Medical College. And so he's kind of the bastion of that of that scene. And that's a real life thing. I grew up over here in East Nashville. Rashad grew up in North Nashville. We're just a year apart in age, and we've had those realizations that our paths maybe had crossed over the years, but it wasn't until we shot that pilot a few years ago that really solidified our friendship, you know?
He's really good too.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, he is. That's the thing, right? Find the most talented people you can find, stick them in there, let them show you up.
Yeah.
That's the secret for success.
Right.
No egos. And so, I'd say his primary motivation ultimately will be kind of building and uplifting the community. Ultimately, we'd like to see him run for office, for councilman, over some potholes or something silly. And we think that could be a really fun, through line for him.
Right.
So here's where things get crazy, fellas. We're keeping Dean, who is the Australian dad, but we are considering, in this take of the pilot, bumping him over into golf cart cabbie, which are the folks downtown Nashville that roll you around to tour and see the site. And he becomes kind of the fourth member of the Nashville Dads Club, even though he doesn't have any kids of his own. He's just he's got that rugged outback spirit, and he babysits for the gang, really because he needs cash job, and he holds a degree in early childhood development. Why, in that funny way. And then the take that we've got right now that a lot of people are digging is that we've got a fourth dad who's actually a mom. It's a single lesbian mom.
Whoa.
Right?
That's
too far?
No.
Is that a bridge too far? Okay.
No, I'm laughing.
Her name is Kate Winfrey, and she is by far the most alpha of the group, right? She had a kid through artificial insemination. She thought she knew what she was getting into, but ended up a little over her head. She's a career-driven music executive, here in Music City. That's something we've got a lot of, and people want to see that side of Nashville, without selling out and making the same show that everybody else is making, where you got a community of singer-songwriters. We're looking for ways to incorporate what we know people are interested in.
Yeah, right. Someone who exploits those singer-songwriters.
That's pretty much, man. Exactly that.
I think that's a brilliant character and a great add to the mix of the show.
Right. Also, she challenges their masculinity because she presents, I'm guessing, a little more masculine than some of them. And you get into great questions of what it means to be parent / male / female / gay / straight. It's all.
Yeah, there's still the dad role, quote unquote, in a relationship or in parenting. What is that? And,
Jim and I, and maybe you, Phillip, too, are deathly afraid we'll say the wrong thing here. But it's still a variation, and that's great. Variations help a lot.
That's what we were looking for. It's just, we didn't have any, in 3 minutes on our web series, you could try to introduce some moms or some wives or something, but there's really not a ton of time in that medium to flesh out some characters. So this was an opportunity to kind of spread the love and again, just give a bigger look, cast a wider net.
Just off and this, I don't want to cut off what you're actually going to say, but man, that's a great story for a series pilot to me. Is the new dad on the block, right?
Is a mom?
Yeah, just her joining the Dads
Club.
Is a
woman?
Club. Yeah, because that shakes the tree so hard in such interesting ways.
And it's also the classic bring in the new person so we stay in there.
Right, and you're getting to see everyone through fresh eyes. And
right, and she's calling everybody out on their bullshit in some way, or at least shaking the tree somehow, as you said. And yeah, that's cool. I know, obviously, Phil's about to say, no, we're not doing that at all.
We tried that. That sucked. We're not doing that.
But we just want to talk about it because that's one. It's a classic, and there's a reason why it works so well.
Yeah.
And we did it on Haven, and it really was. We did it accidentally, but we did it, and it worked for 6 seasons. Okay, before you get into the story, I'm going to say something hurtful, which is I don't feel characters here though yet. I feel situations, situational characters, but I don't actually know what drives them. And I think the thing is, I watched, 5 of your videos, and I know those are supposed to be funny and small and all of that, but I'm going to push, before we talk about the story, I'm going to push you just to say, why is everybody doing what they do?
Sure.
And I think if you could try not to be funny for a minute, which I suspect is hard. And also, it's kind of like dudes hanging around, and they always keep it light. But then we watch commercials where something actual real happens, or we see that moment at the funeral where the dude puts his hand on the other dude's shoulder or something, and everyone starts crying immediately, right?
Right.
We need a little of that. It's got to have that emotional component, an anchor, which is not really in the videos. Those 3-minute, 4-minute things. And here's what I want to pitch you, and I want you to talk about it, but here's what I want to pitch you is that is cheap deep.
Yes.
As we right,
which for a sitcom kind of show is generally what you get is cheap deep.
Right.
And it works.
And I don't mean cheap. We don't mean cheap and bad, as in false. A better word would be efficient deep.
Right.
Or we don't have to kill ourselves to find that deep. I don't
Right.
need a huge backstory to get that deep. You could almost tell me Rashad's thing is he is deathly afraid that he's going to be the shitty father that his father was, right?
Mhm.
And that would be enough for me because now I know what drives him, and that would answer the why. And you could say, okay, but yeah, we're going to do that. His father was shitty in this way. Okay, he's black, so we're going to presume that his father was shitty in these stereotypical or well-worn areas of shitty dad stuff. But it turns out his father is shitty in this way that is not necessarily related in any way to the color of his skin, but it's just related to Rashad. And that's great, but that's just piling on to the cheap deep of he's afraid he's going to fuck up like his dad. And that drives comedy so hard.
Well, and I think all of these caveats in mind, we should hear what the pilot story is to see if any of this is covered in the story that Phillip has.
Right. And so I wanted to just lay out what I'm going to be looking for.
I think that's super insightful take, man. And that's something that I do strive for. And, we're making a comedy show. I typically prefer, for my viewing pleasure sometimes, 1 hour prestige dramas, right? And so I do look for those ways to tap into that sense, that feeling, of some universal truth or something. When you're watching something and you're like, man, this is hitting me on a level that it's like it's explaining my life.
Right.
And so that is something that I'm looking to find with this show. Again, the fatherhood experience is so universal, but kind of breaking it down, in ways that hopefully that people can relate to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say is it's almost baked into the topic area you've chosen, right? Like being a father, raising children, like there's so much emotional depth and all of that for everyone because we all have dads and some of us are them.
Right.
I think the thing that, just to illustrate something, you become a father and, you have this emotional connection to this being that you didn't know you could have, blah, blah, blah. We all know what it is. But then for dudes, speaking of this dude, but also I know a lot of dudes, and we actually talk about this stuff, is all of a sudden you find yourself not crying per se, but your eyes will well up at any moment of the day for some crazy reason. Would that happen to you, Phillip? You know what I'm talking about? Am I just sitting
It
here alone?
does.
Right.
No, it absolutely does.
Right.
And sometimes commercials will hit you and you're like, oh, that's good storytelling.
Yeah.
Phillip, you have just redeemed me because I sometimes cry at commercials and it's the most embarrassing secret of my life.
But here's the thing. We know now that we're not in our 20s, that not only should it not be embarrassing, but that shit will get you laid. Right? I mean,
unfortunately.
Well, I'm just saying it comes back to
Not
here
by
we
your
are.
wife, unfortunately.
That's
but...
not true. That's especially your wife, right? And we all know that it's the exact opposite of what young guys think. That if you just have an actual conversation, if you bear a little bit of soul, that will go a lot further than Axe body spray will ever get you, right? And that's the money.
And clearly that's the lesson Kate needs to learn as she gets introduced to the group.
No,
Right.
I'm not saying that. I'm not going.
But I
or whatever.
that would be funny to me. Anyway.
But the point is, for example, I'm pitching a story, is that Phillip is mortified when this starts happening to him, which is funny. But then I would ask you, and he's struggling against it, and then of course in the tradition, then someone outs, it's like he got his period or something, and he's hiding it from all the other girls, and then when he talks to everyone at the end, he finds out, oh, everybody got their period, and they're all like, okay, we're friends. Okay, we have a shared experience. Okay, that's the shitty version. To me, the better version is then knowing why he's afraid to cry, which you only need in one scene, one moment. The rest of it can be funny, but that moment when you find out why he's afraid to cry, that's the money. That's the thing that, to me, takes it from a more shallower version, where it's still funny and still good, but then you get to that, and that's when you get laid. Because that's that moment where I give a shit about this show.
Right.
And the thing is, you got to get that even in those 4-minute clips to me. Because
Gotcha.
that I think will separate you from all those short videos that are telling jokes. And the funny thing is, it's easier than telling a joke. And it doesn't have to be that big. It doesn't have to be, I need 48 minutes and $11 million and period costumes to understand the pathos.
Right.
There are bad ways to do that. Yeah, you could go into a flashback and there's Phillip being teased because he cried in class. I don't think that's the good version. I'm not advocating for that kind of simple.
No, and you're right. The flashback would probably qualify as your cheap deep, right? Where it's like, yeah, that's an easy, fast, quick way.
Well, it's not
show
good.
that.
It's not good cheap deep. That's what I'm saying.
Well, it all depends on how you do it.
I guess
right?
so.
It could be like it's a la Letterkenny. If that were to be some component of your show of what works for you, it could become a tool in your toolbox.
It could be that, yeah. I mean, if the flashback was he watches his mother, who's a single mother, crying, and in that moment realizes he can't cry. He has to, and he's strong for her. in that moment. So he's always been strong, and now he's wondering, can I still be strong and cry? That would be like, oh, that's like an after-school special in a scene. That's like, do they even have those anymore? But anyway, the point is, and you're like, oh, shit. And Phillip, I will bang this drum forever because I wish I could go back in time to starting out writer Sam and say, don't go for the joke every time. Take that moment and breathe. And let that happen. It'll make the jokes 50 times funnier. And anyway, okay, I said my piece on that.
If I have some deficiencies as a writer, it probably is going for that joke as opposed to letting it breathe and kind of making that deeper point.
We don't talk about it a lot, but we came out here to write comedy. Was our original goal when we arrived in Hollywood, and we actually sold some dramedy indie features and that kind of working in that kind of world. And for us, that was the transition, was as we started to add in the emotional piece, we started getting more interested in the emotional part than the joke over time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But it is something we learned about writing sitcoms in the, 15 spec sitcoms we wrote over time, was that there's always some emotional framework in the story, right? And it's super light because you're talking, 22 to 24 minutes. You don't have time to tell some deep story because you are trying to hit 3 jokes a page or whatever it is. But just having that little piece to build on, it gives the story a meaning. It's what makes it a story and not just pages of jokes in a row.
So, Phillip, let's hear about the pilot. What happens to the pilot?
So, we had a choice to make. Do you do a premise pilot or do you do a day in the life of type of pilot?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if we split it. And in doing so, are we doing service to either one? I don't know. Here's the pitch. So we got the cold open. It opens up on the Nashville Single Father Support Group. And we find Phillip and Rashad and Kate there. And Kate is advocating for a coup. She thinks that the guy who's currently running it is weak-spirited, and he's bringing down the entire support group, and she thinks she could do better. It comes out through discussion, that nobody agrees with her. After she puts it all out there, she says, well, Phillip and Rashad are down. Right, guys? And she had them all amped up to overthrow the tyranny of regular dad Steve, And so that's where we find them. That's where it opens up.
You're starting out the scene where the lesbian runs down a man for not being strong enough to lead the group.
Right.
And so proves it by having the 2 other guys on board with her to follow her.
They fail her. Oh, my God. Okay, good luck. Yeah, just hold really tight onto that third rail right before the train comes. That's good. Grab it. Maybe you could put your tongue on it. Good luck.
Well, and we find out that, she was kicked out of the moms groups for bringing too much BDE, big dad energy. And they couldn't handle her in the moms groups.
Yeah.
So that of course ends in a verbal altercation, hard cut to the 3 of them being, sitting outside on the curb. They've been kicked out of that single dad support group. Ocean, which is, we did give some other names to myself, Rashad, and Dean. I don't know if you guys think that matters one way or another, but in a pilot world, we decided that the hipster from East Nashville could be named Ocean. Rashad could be named Preston Briley. Again, we're just looking for Nashville-centric names. And so the 3 of them are sitting outside. Ocean, my character is freaking out. He truly doesn't know what to do. He is afraid. If you get down to his kind of core fear, it's that he's got a baby and he's going to ruin this kid because he has no idea how to be a parent, right?
Why is he afraid he's going to ruin this kid?
Because his dad wasn't there for him. It was kind of that simple in our backstory.
That's good. Simple is great. Simple is great.
Okay, good.
The specifics make it complicated. The core should be nice and simple.
The one thing, just to speak to the open and this quest for an emotional underpinning, like the idea that all these people are in a support group for dads trying to figure out how to be a good dad. And then I think the presence of Kate is really useful in that way because you have someone who, given the nature of her relationship and her approach to life, doesn't naturally fit into the categories that we look at as traditional parenting in some ways, right? So like as she's seeking to find the place she's comfortable in, being kicked out of the mom's group, and now she's trying to make the dad's group work for her by overthrowing the leader, like it shines a light on how all of these guys are approaching fatherhood. And it feels like that's a way to pull out this emotional underpinning for these characters and the episode.
What did you all's take on having all 3 of those parents there in the same place at the same time? I did receive a note that was, hey, you might want to stagger some of your main characters and not introduce them all in the same. You got a feel for that?
I can see Jim shrugging like, that could work either way. But I'll tell you the challenge you have right away with that scene is that's carrying a lot of water in one scene. And you end up with the death of a lot of scenes, which is they're too long, because you got a certain amount of terrain to cover. And I don't know what people's agendas are yet because I don't know them. So it's not that longer scenes can't work. We write them all the time. But the easier scenes to write are shorter with a single purpose and I know what that one person wants.
And in this version, right, if, say, Kate had been kicked out of the mom's group and here she shows up in the dad's group and she's listening for 2 or 3 exchanges to what's going on in the group, and then she wants to stage a coup and change things, and the other guy or guys who are there don't really know her yet, and then you have another scene in the aftermath of her failed coup where they're getting to know her because they connected on something that she said or whatever it is, right? Then we're seeing the growth and the building of the relationships between these guys, and you are introducing them sort of one at a time.
That helps. That helps in terms of ease of writing. I think you're going to have more success. It can be successful in any way of this.
Right.
But it's just easier, not have multiple agenda, too much going on in a scene.
And ease of writing is often ease of viewing because you're not asking the viewer to absorb too many, to track so many different pieces. If it's like, oh, there's this person. Okay, now we've added this person, and here they are forming a relationship with each other. Understood. Add one more person in the next scene.
You've also blown past the question of why the hell is Kate in a dad's group, right? Does that come up in the scene?
Well, that's, in dialogue between the dads as she's attempting this coup. It's, you don't even belong here. You were just kicked out of the mom's group.
Right.
And she drops the line, they said they couldn't handle all this BDE. It's not my fault. And Rashad leans over to me and whispers, big dad energy.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. I mean, that helps.
Yeah. Cool. And so that's the cold open, so that's, I would say, kind of the premise part of the pilot, right? Like, who are these 3 people? Why are they together? And that ends with Ocean and Preston sitting on the curb, and Ocean drops the idea, well, maybe the 3 of us could, help each other out, right? With babysitting, and, there's poop everywhere at my house, right? There's I got stuff that I have no idea how to clean. And Kate, in that alpha way, is not interested.
So they don't know each other well outside of this group, then?
They don't know Kate very well outside of the group.
Okay. Well, that's
helps.
great. Right.
Yeah, that
so
helps.
then your opening scene really is the introduction of Kate to these guys.
Yeah. Okay,
right.
I get it. Okay, that's what the scene's about then.
It's about them seeing her, and then in the aftermath, they find a reason to connect with her, whatever it is, out of that scene, and they form their own
Right.
thing.
So what's the turn in that scene, Phillip?
Ultimately, the turn is that, no, Kate rejects them.
No, in the previous scene, in the dad group scene. What's the turn? What changed?
Failed coup?
Oh, it's the coup, and it's that they had a place to go where they could find support. And by the end of that scene, they no longer have that life preserver, if you will.
So the challenge there is we need to know that they're going into that scene, that this is their safe place. This is where they can go. They need this desperately. And then the turn is it's not that. They blow it up somehow.
It's taken away, right? They support her.
Right. It's not the coup or failure of the coup, because that's just plot, and I don't know her, and it doesn't matter. It's, this is what I want. This place is fantastic. This is what I've been looking for, and then the whole thing blows up. Or, you know what? I don't want this. I want her because she's cool or whatever.
Right.
So we want to have that in that scene.
Gotcha. And I would say there are some elements in the dialogue there that I probably didn't flesh out for you. But yes, we do try to establish that Ocean desperately needs this group because he's in over his head and has no idea what's going on. Kate is putting up the veneer of strength that over the course of the episode will kind of learn to be false. But again, so that cold open, ends with them sitting out on the sidewalk, kicked out, Kate leaving them, later losers, didn't need this group anyway, and Preston inviting Ocean over to his house. Man, if you can keep the baby alive for another week, why don't you come to dinner at my house? Mom's there. His mom is now living with him, and then we're into the show. So that kind of gets us out of the cold open into the first act.
Okay.
Any thoughts there, or shall I proceed?
I'd say keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
Keep going.
Okay.
You don't have to tell us everything, but I mostly am trying to track what people want and how they're not getting it. And how we're learning about them as they go. So I'm trying to track.
Perfect. All right. So Ocean shows up to dinner with his 1-year-old child, and Ella is Preston's mom, and she's cool old lady. She grew up in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? So she's seen a lot of stuff in that way that our elders often have, and we don't realize all the cool stuff they've lived through. And we meet Preston's kids. They are 13-year-old twins, Bronx and Brooklyn, and they are getting ready to go out to their first sleepover. So they're excited.
Boys, girls, mixed?
One of each, one boy, one girl.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of excitement there. They've called the Uber, which is, just kind of a funny thing where it's like, do you let your kids ride an Uber by themselves? I don't know if you can do that. But Preston does, and they promise to be good, and everybody's excited. They hop into the Uber. We see them in the car, and they have stolen some of Grandma's gummies, some of her CBD gummies. And of the twins, Brooklyn, the girl, is kind of the outgoing party girl extrovert, and Bronx is very nervous about what they're getting into here and feels real weird about this whole thing, but kind of gets peer pressured into just eating the gummies with his sister.
How old are they?
They're 13.
13, okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're trying to do with the show is show what it's like being a dad to a 1-year-old. Kate, we reveal, has a 2-year-old, and then we've got some teenagers as well, which can be a handful. The dads are just catching up, and we learn a little bit more about Preston and his mom's relationship. She's tough on him, but she loves him and is supportive. And the grandmother goes to look for her medicine and discovers it's not there. And the dads start talking about what could have happened. And Preston says, my kids are good kids. They wouldn't have done that. And Ocean replies, well, we would have, when we were their age, that's certainly something we would have done. Mm-hmm. And so the dad freaks out, starts trying to call and text his kids, who at that point have already redirected the Uber downtown. They're going to downtown Nashville on a Saturday night. And that's kind of, again, one of those bones that we're throwing to the general public that probably wants to see Nashville. We're flooded with tourists every weekend.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we recognize that is something that people want to see from a show set in Nashville. Mm-hmm. So the dads don't know what to do. Ocean hasn't been out of his house in a year, basically, since he's been raising this kid. He's kind of excited, kind of scared. Ella says she'll watch the baby for him while he goes. And so they're heading downtown to look for these kids. They received a text to, something to the effect of, Dad, may have eaten too much downtown.
Is that going to be a runner for you throughout the thing, the texts that come in, the trippy
it is, man.
Of course it is. That's beautiful. I love that.
Of course it is.
The thing it also does is it gets the kids out of the show, which I'm not interested in.
You want to live
kids.
with the dads.
I want to live with, it's about dads. I want to live with them. I was already hearing too much about the kids, and I was like, all right, yeah. First of all, they're 13.
Right.
I'm not interested in 13-year-olds. But second of all, they're not cute and they're annoying. But also, it's about the dads. That's really why.
Yeah.
Great point. So that puts them downtown. They get out of the car, and that's kind of that break from 1 into 2 is, now they're in the madness of downtown Nashville on the weekend, which is quite maddening these days. And they flag down a golf cart driver to help get them around. They receive a text, Dad scared, crazy horses everywhere.
I love it. Now we're going to.
That's Dean, of course,
That's
right?
Dean, of course, yeah.
Yeah, and that's Dean now stepping in with his rugged outback ways, and he says, "Oi, let me see that thing." And they read him the text, "Crazy horses, that's on my route." And of course, it's Crazy Horse Gentlemen's Club,
of course,
that he takes them to, and they're not sure. Preston, once again, man, my kids wouldn't be here, but Ocean again, looking for that woke hottie, is convinced that they owe it to each other to leave no stone unturned.
Right.
So they step into the gentleman's club, don't see the kids anywhere, of course, but who should they see fighting with her stripper girlfriend but Kate? She's hanging out in the club on a Saturday night as she's having an argument with her girlfriend Sahara just before Sahara takes the stage. And they flag her down. They tell her what's going on. They ask if she's seen kids. She says absolutely not. They read her the text, and she says, "Oh, not Crazy Horses. That's Wild Horse, moron. They're at the Wild Horse Saloon where there's a giant industry party tonight." So that puts Kate back into the mix.
Right.
She agrees. She reluctantly agrees to help the guys, but not before saying, "Yeah, hang on, I got to grab some stuff out of the back." Goes to the men's room, where who should we find with Rocco, the bathroom attendant, but her 2-year-old son Oliver. So she's using Rocco, the bathroom attendant, as childcare because that's how great of a mom she is. And she's like, "What problem? I don't see the problem." Rocco knows what he's doing, and the kid is adorable and handing out mints, in the men's room. And that just kind of shows you, Kate thinks she's got it all figured out, thinks she's a rock star mom, but
That's
really
great.
has no idea.
No idea.
Yeah. So they're back in the car with Hank, back on the golf cart, and they're heading to Wild Horse
Cart's
Saloon.
getting busier and busier. Now, how are we seeing, what is Ocean like during this whole time?
Ocean is excited and nervous. He's a high-strung individual. And so, again, having not been out of his little bubble for a year,
yeah, but
that's actually...
But this is the pilot, though. We need to really get a sense of who he is in this pilot. This is the challenge with pilots. Is I have to come out of here and say he is this kind of guy. So what kind of guy is he? It can't be because he was in for a year, because that's just that's a situational thing. What is he like? Period. And how am I going to see that? What's his reactions to this? Rashad is terrified because it's his kids, and so is Rashad a terrified kind of guy? No, he's worried that he failed them because he's going to be like his father. Or was that who's the one who has the
Right.
father problem?
Ocean has the father issue.
Right.
Yeah, Preston is just afraid that that his kids are going to get in trouble, and he's trying to keep his kids out of trouble.
So how's the father issue informing Ocean's how he's being in the scenes?
That's a great question. I would say, big picture, the father issue informs Ocean in that he is a hipster guy. And the hipsters, I know them. I've been accused from time to time. Know a whole lot about a whole bunch of random stuff. You don't drink organic single origin coffee,
right?
And they go about getting all the information, think that they know so much about so many things, and again, that's all in an attempt to kind of compensate for the daddy issues and not having that guidance and not having those answers as a kid.
Great, that's a great answer. So he's a know-it-all because he didn't get shit from his father, and that's how he's trying to be great.
Right.
That's
but
the
I'd
answer.
say he's a know-it-all in a very contemporary, hipster kind of way.
Totally, that's fine. That part is less important. That's great. I'm just saying I now get it. If that is to me, that is Ocean's North Star, if I was writing him.
Right.
Gotcha.
And it's got to be pissing people off, and then we have to find out why.
Right. Then underneath that is his fear that he doesn't know anything about what he's doing, right, or whatever.
Which tells me we need a moment where he doesn't have the answer, right?
Ooh, I like that.
That's how I'm looking for it, because really, Philip, I cannot say it enough. It's that fucking simple.
Oh, geez. Okay, great.
And so when I'm sitting here hammering on this shit, I'm not hammering because to be a dick. I'll do other things to be a dick. This isn't one of them, I hope. But the point is, it's just that simple. And if you just focus on that, especially in the pilot, but really every episode, Ocean compensates for this in this way. And that will inform everything. And it'll be a consistent character. Okay, so getting to Preston. I'm sorry. Preston is terrified because his kids are in harm's way.
And it sounds like he's fronting that, no, not my kids because I've raised them right.
Right.
Which is denial of the fact he might have fucked up, which he doesn't want to admit because he felt like his dad fucked up.
Well, that's going back to dads again. Are we want to do that?
No, with him, his wife left him.
Oh,
and so he's
okay.
got some serious
better.
issues there.
That's better. That's great because I think I had pitched that Preston thing for the dad and all that.
Oh, maybe that's what I was.
But that's great. So Preston,
he's in denial in his own way.
He's grieving. He's mad. He's all those things you are when his wife dropped the ball here, right?
Preston's wife left him for someone else, and so he's someone that always was a strong man throughout his life, and thinks he's done a great job raising his kids. And then you have this kind of inexplicable loss, right? Not a death necessarily, but where somebody's making a choice to leave you, and it blows a hole in your confidence.
Right, and I guess that's what I was going off of was the idea that my kids wouldn't do that. There's an element of denial in that, and if it's because he thought he was a good husband, that turned out not to be true, and he thinks he's a good dad, and tonight is challenging that viewpoint for him that, well, maybe he's not. So there's an emotional piece in that of like, I thought I raised them better than this, and if I'm being proved wrong about that, there's an emotional price to that.
That's why she left.
Right. It's another way in which he has failed to be who he thought he was.
Is that the answer? Is that what it is, Philip?
Yes.
How do we see that? When's that moment when that comes up?
Well, there's some dialogue with his mom where he's able to be a little more open towards the end of the episode.
So
about I'm just doing the best I can here. We don't know why things happen.
No, that's. I think you want to hit this harder, and
I think you might want to between the dads because this is kind of this is about. It's the idea is that it's an emotional support group for dads, right?
Yeah.
So they need to be communicating with each other and notionally learning from each other, not really because they're going to reset a lot every episode.
And maybe the advice is completely wrong, but that's the funny part of it. The thing is, you're not going to be the perfect dad. Even if you were the perfect dad, it's not going to bring her back. It's not going to make her want you, right? It's not going to solve that hurt, right? And that's what it's got to come down to. That's the piece. And if I were you, Philip, because you're afraid, I suspect, like we all are, to write shitty on the nose dialogue.
Yep.
I would write the shitty on the nose dialogue version of that first in your scene.
Sure.
And just let it suck for a while, and then say, all right, how can I configure the scene so that comes out without me having to do that?
And maybe go watch a couple episodes that you like of sitcoms where there is some emotional beat or sitcom pilots, and turn on the closed caption and watch what the actual lines look like, because a lot of times they're simpler and more dumb and on the nose than you think they are.
Right.
Right.
And because you're shooting this, are you planning to shoot this?
Well, that is a plan, right? We're going to do a season 2 of the short form, and then see where we land.
All right. So let's get. We don't have a ton more time. So let's get to Dean. So Dean's character, he's the golf guy. He seems to meet some need, and what I'm seeing is he's the free spirit that none of these guys can be. Is that right? Including
the spirit
Kate.
of their former undad selves.
Right, and that character is a great. I mean, that goes all the way back to Reverend Jim in Taxi that I used to watch in reruns when I was a kid, and loved him because he's crazy. Is that this guy? And
it's amplified by his rugged outbackian ways, right? So it's that on the Australian diet, right? So I fought a wallaby when I was your age,
right?
And,
right,
and that goes back to the roadkill,
that's the flavor on it,
roadkill thing,
right?
I mean, this is great. There's a lot. There's a lot here, and you definitely have. You know how to write the madcap stuff clearly, and I think the thing that we hear a lot on this podcast, and we're not telling you, which I'm so relieved, is there's too much story. It's too complicated. It's too, pare this back. I'm not feeling that. Are you feeling that, Jim?
No, I think it's very simple and clean, which is you introduce a bunch of parents, you put some of their kids in trouble, right, or at risk in a way that they have to go be dads and hunt them down and help them.
Right.
Which is very simple. It's clean. It's right on the money for what you're trying to do with the series. And then it's just the question of these emotional payoffs.
Yeah, and the emotional line through the whole thing is not only the most important thing, but it's the essential thing, and if you don't have it, you don't have it. You don't have the show. It's that important, and I would advocate strongly putting them in those shorts, the second season that you're doing. I think the second season is where the show grows up. Because you know who's not watching this? TikTok followers. They don't give a shit about you, old man. They don't care. Right?
Oh, that hurts.
Yeah, they don't. Because you're not 16. They don't give a shit, and they don't care about dads. They don't, dads suck.
Dads are a plague.
Yeah, they're a plague. Or they're great, but they're kind of embarrassing. I don't know how far this is going to go, but my 18-year-old still makes me drop her half a block before wherever she's going. I'm like, when does this end, man? And I've got, and she's like, Dad, I love you. You're so great. Thanks for supporting me. Drop me off a block away because I can't see you. So don't play to them. Play to us who kind of like, all the professionals. And you're talking about growing up TV. They all have that thing, right? That's what real TV is. And Seinfeld, which is so great, they were the one-off that fought against it.
Right.
And they got away with it. But 90% of them, 99% of the rest of them, all had it. And I think you could get it if you just stick to that thing. And that moment, I'm hoping that was an aha moment for you when we were talking about Ocean, which is he's using his knowledge to compensate the fact that he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. And we have to reveal that. And once we do, everything makes sense for the show.
Love it.
And that can be, you could have it in a short. And I'm just using this I'm not trying to write your shorts for you. I don't think you need my help. But the idea being Ocean saying some useless knowledge. And then Dean says, why are you doing that? And it starts falling asleep. And then Preston leans over and says, let him tell you this. And then we just get that moment. And I'm like, why? Why does that come up? You don't have to answer that right away. And then later Dean could say, well, why do we do that? And then he could explain it. Sometimes it's better when it comes from another character. I mean, there's so many ways to do this. It doesn't have to be two people telling each other exactly what they want.
It's almost always better when someone else tells someone what they want.
Yeah.
Right.
What that other
Right.
So there's so many ways to go about this. There's also, you don't have to answer it. When Kate is doing whatever later, these guys don't know her yet, and one of them says, I think she's afraid of this thing. And she overhears and says, go fuck yourself. I am not. Fuck that, And by doing that, I'm like, oh, yeah, she is. Right?
And then later you have the beat, 4 scenes later where she does, in fact, show a sign that landed for her.
Yeah, maybe. There's so many ways to get at that thing. It doesn't have to be two of them. It can just be one of them in a pilot. But there's different, you don't want to hit it the same way in each character when you're revealing their central need and desire line.
But you've clearly set up all of the pieces on the board correctly. You got great characters. The premise is a home run. You're on your home turf there in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're doing everything right. It really is just the question of making sure you land those simple emotional beats.
Right.
That'll give it legs.
And to be clear, this is a demonstration pilot. This is not a premise pilot for everyone that has a demonstration pilot is demonstrating what the show is every episode. It's going to be something like this. Whereas a premise pilot, like The Sopranos, it just starts, you're in a story. And the next episode is not going to be the same, but it's going to continue that story. You're in a demonstration pilot. So don't force yourself one way or the other. Every pilot for a demonstration pilot is so hard because you have to show a typical episode and establish all the characters.
Right. Which you do pretty efficiently by starting off with a father's support group off the top. that then fails the characters and they make their own. Well, now that's it. That's what the show is. It's these guys helping each other be dads.
100%.
It's a very smart move.
So there's so much. Wow, I want to see this. By the way, I'm going to be watching these clips, and if they stay shallow and there's no deep in there, I'm calling you up.
You're coming for me? Oh no.
I'm coming for you. I'm like, dude, come on.
You just got to get all the way to Nashville.
You can do better.
You do all the hard stuff, and then the one easy thing, you're like, no, that's too easy. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. That's great.
This is great, man.
Yeah,
and,
you're going to do great. This is good.
I got to say, I'm impressed. A lot of people talk about writing videos and putting them up on YouTube. Maybe they do one, maybe they do two, maybe they even go out. And, when Jim and I were starting out, a friend of ours bought some gear, and we were like, oh, great, we can make some stuff, which is backwards. You got to know what you want to make first. And then, of course, he never did any of that. So it's easy to buy the gear. People will spend days researching the gear.
Because that's the easy part.
It's the easy part. Everything to avoid the writing. But you did the writing, the casting, all of that. I mean, you've already separated yourself from a huge part of the pack. So kudos to you, man.
Oh, thanks, guys.
But tell your wife it's still low odds.
I told her it was a guaranteed home run. Was that wrong? Oh, no.
Yeah, right. So did this help you, Phillip, at all?
It did. This was super helpful, guys. Great conversation. Found a new perspective on a couple things. So, yeah, this was super helpful. I appreciate your time, guys.
All right.
I think we messed him up.
He was broken when he walked in.
All right.
Now I can cry.
Yeah, right.
It's a pleasure talking to you, Phil.
Right. Thanks, man.
Thanks, fellas.
And that's all we've got for you this week. Our producer, J.R. Zamora-Thal, is working the mixing board.
Our logo was designed by Julien Debar-Monclair, and our music was provided by Buddha-Rays out of Austin, Texas.
If you want to get in touch, we are at The Sam and Jim on Instagram and Twitter. And you can find us on Facebook and YouTube as The Writers' Room with Sam and Jim.
And if you like hanging out in the room with us, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
And tell a friend, would you, so we can get JR paid. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.